What is your accidentally caught your spouse cheating horror story? Not me, but a medical resident who I met on rotation recently. One of the nicest guy I ever met, super intelligent and hardworking, and training to be a trauma surgeon by humble as they come. He had been married for 2 years to his wife. One night he gets off a 30-hour call early and heads home to surprise his wife with some flowers and her favorite dessert. It was the anniversary of the day they first met, only to find her in bed with a random dude. He was so exhausted and confused, he didn't know what to do, and just left, and went back to the hospital. I saw him at 5 AM, sitting in the parking lot, hunched over crying. He didn't even have his phone with him, he was just sitting there. Man, nothing breaks your heart more than seeing a grown man cry. It's not something you see often. We called his dad up, and he came and picked him up. The guy ended up taking a leave from his residency. Turns out, it wasn't the wife's first time sleeping around. Hope he gets back on his feet. He will make an amazing physician. On family vacation, I picked up his phone because I was bored and the kids were playing on mine. Saw a message to some girl describing the sexy and I had the night before. Spent the rest of the vacation fighting via text while trying and failing to act normal. Friend of mine was hanging out with some guys at a bar and went home to chill with them. He asked how they knew my girlfriend at the time. Realized she was a mutual friend at the bar. Guy said she was fuck buddies with his friend. My friend was confused and mentioned she was the girlfriend of a friend of his, me, to which his response was, "Oh, I hope you're not good enough of friends to have to tell him." Had a really close group of friends who would always prank each other. One of my mates found out the Facebook password of another, so while on Skype the whole call, included myself, logged into his Facebook account, being 7 people, to make a stupid status. At the same time my partner of 5 years was messaging him on Facebook about how good sex was last night, and about meeting up again. College girlfriend and we lived together for a year after I realized she would always have her phone on silent, or just plain ignore calls from Jennifer. One day I write down the number and call it a week later. It ends up being her other boyfriend who she had never broken up with before she came to college. Neither of us knew about each other, and she had been visiting him when she went home to see her parents on some weekends and breaks. Broke up soon after, and her mom said that sometimes you just have to accept things, and how I owed her an apology for breaking up with her. It gets worse, but that was the gist. Walked in on my girlfriend while she was having sex with another guy. "What are you doing here?" she says. "You gave me a key, remember? I ended up not working today and wanted to surprise you." 15 years later she reaches out, leaves me a message that she'd like to talk. I figure she's doing some 12-step thing or something and wants to make amends. Nope. She wanted to try and sell me on Amway. Mount St. Augustine erupted in Alaska in 1986. They had to evacuate all planes out of Elmendorf AFB due to ash in the air. This sent my unit home from Korea 3 days early. I got home at 2 AM and there was a guy sleeping next to my wife in our bed. I just got off work after working the graveyard shift. I walk into my apartment with my fiance riding some guy she met at a party on my futon which they broke. I walked out with so much rage and broken feelings. I went to my car and cried. Found my wife's notebook. Written on the first page was a 10-step plan detailing how she was going to leave me for another guy. I turned it into 1 step. Came home early. They were fast enough to get dressed, but not in a natural state of being, if that makes sense. It was obvious something was just going down. Very cliched, got walked in on and tried to play it cool, like you see in TV. I asked him to leave and he did. We argued. She tried to lie but soon confessed. It wasn't the first time she cheated, but it was the first time that I caught her in the act. Everything in the past was just texts and stuff. She said that she never slept with the other people, and it was just pics and flirting. In retrospect, that may not be BS. We divorced, both remarried. Not friends by any stretch, but civil. I was at Disney with our kids. Day 2 of a 7-day family trip her father had been, by that point, talking up for about 7 years. He and her mother told us, when the kids were born, they were going to take us all to Disney when they turned 7. And 7 years later, it finally happened. At that point, we'd been together for over a decade. Had a great job, a house, bunch of kids, and the full-on, 100%, honest to goodness American dream. Life was grand until I picked up her phone to set an alarm on night 2 of our family vacation of a lifetime. There were so many texts. So many. I remember actually wanting to hurt her and having to leave the room. I immediately called the number and heard some fucking strange dude answer with a sleepy, "Hello darling. I'm glad to hear from you. I wanted to die." The sense of unreality that I experienced. It was immediately numbing. Like I'd just switched to the dark timeline. All I could think was, from this point on, everything that I have known about my wife is going to change. Early 2000s, my friend's husband was deployed to Iraq. Together, they had a 10-year-old son and a happy marriage. One day, while he was deployed, I'm at home when another one of our friends calls and screams, "Holy shit, turn on the news right now." I turn it on to watch a human interest story about a fundraiser at a high school 30 miles away. They are doing Relay for Life or something, and as a surprise to one of the participants, they had her husband and father of her 2 grade school children do a video call from Iraq and displayed it on the football jumbotron. There on our local news is my friend's husband telling another woman and 2 kids how he loves them and can't wait to get back home to them. The news eats it up about what a great guy he is. That night, our group of friends convened and decided how we would tell her. I was nominated, so the next day I had to sit her down and tell her what we saw. She called the news station, and they were happy to let her come in and watch the story. They were also incredibly apologetic. Story has a somewhat crappy ending, I'm afraid. She called him out on his BS. They started divorce proceedings, and he went on to legally marry the mother of his other kids, and mostly ignored his son from the first marriage. Dating this girl a few years back, and I became really good friends with her brother, just because he appreciated my help during a difficult time for their family. Their father had abruptly passed away. 2 years into the relationship, the brother contacts me and asks to meet up for coffee and a serious conversation. Apparently he caught his own sister with another guy, mutual friend of ours, and this shit had been going on for like a year. As soon as he found out, I was told. Broke up with her. Still friends with her brother. Go figure. One of my former co-workers loaded in a SD card with a scanned project file on it. He put it into the conference room PC. We were treated to naked pics of his wife fucking another guy. We were just stunned. This was in a senior budgetary meeting with the outside accountants and auditors, and he was sitting right there, and we were looking at his wife and another guy going at it. I reached over and shut the projector off. Nobody said anything. He got up and walked out and drove off in his car, left his phone and laptop sitting on the table. He wound up driving to his parents' house 3 states away. He was gone for a week. Had my suspicions for a couple months, but no evidence or anything. My ex lived about 40 miles from me, and we were 18. Dated and went to high school together for 3 years. She would come down into the city on weekends to spend time with me. I knew she had another group of friends in her town and a few were guys, which didn't bother me. But I woke up in the middle of the night and messaged her on Facebook, only to notice she had been tagged in a photo with one of her friends. He was holding her up and kissing her. It was his new profile picture. I messaged the guy and calmly asked what was going on. He immediately responded and was confused. We decided to meet up for coffee the next morning that my ex was over, and the look on her face was priceless when she saw him walk in and sit beside me. She begged for our forgiveness and claimed she loved us both. Turned out it had been going on for 7 months, and that every time she left my place during the weekends she was returning home to him for the week. Me and the other guy are now best friends and share a house with my fiance and his girlfriend. Fuck you, Taylor. One day my husband was getting ready for work and I saw him packing his GoPro case so he could take it to work. I thought, that's weird. Why would he be taking it to work? So, when he jumped into the shower, I replaced his GoPro with mine and thought I'd look through the files when he leaves for work. My suspicions were on alert because he had just taken a trip to the Pi with some friends. A guy's only weekend kind of thing. Fire up the camera and found 3 videos. Lo and behold, there he is in all his glory, barebacking a Filipino prostitute, looking and posing for the camera like he's some fucking porn star. I was enraged, but also looking at this fool acting like he's a fucking adult film star was hilarious. Boyfriend finally convinces me to have a threesome after months of begging. I finally agree, and our mutual friend comes over. Things get hot and heavy, and when he starts fucking her he moans, "Damn, you feel even better than usual." Everyone freezes. He tries to tell me that he was thinking about my pussy while fucking her, and that it just felt differently, but she felt so guilty that she confessed on the spot and begged me to forgive her. We don't really talk anymore, but last I heard she had been dating my ex for over a year. Had been on the road for work. Was supposed to be 10 days, got to go home a day early. Had a friend pick me up at the airport to surprise my wife and 2 children, 2 years and 8 months. Walked into my ex and her coffee friend snuggling on the couch with my kids. In the same room. I was livid. Of course she denied everything. We split up weeks later. I got a new job with a cell phone company. Free phone for me, 15 a month for her. First bill comes in with call detail. She was on the phone an hour a day with this number while supposedly at work. I call. Dude answers. I hang up. I ask her. She lies and said it was a gal pal of hers. I told her I know she is lying and call it again. Dude answers. Fuck you, Brooke. After a night of trying to keep up with my ex and her co-workers drinking, I call it a night. They stopped talking a few minutes later, and the dog scratched at the door. I let the dog in, and saw them making out on the couch. I watched for 10 minutes, before they noticed me. They were taking their clothes off by then, and he was touching her favorite spots, like he knew them well. No denying it by then. I'm glad I knew. A tense conversation followed with the 2 of them. He left, very drunk on a very cold night. She got a ride to her aunt's place and begged me to go look for him in the cold. This just happened 2 days ago. I was in Florida on vacation with my girlfriend of 6 years, our 4-year-old son, and her family and a few of her friends. She had been taking pictures down at the beach all afternoon on her phone. We got back to the house we were staying at and everyone was in the kitchen making dinner. I picked up her phone and opened it up to text my family the pictures she had taken. As I'm scrolling for the thread, I see her ex-boyfriend's name. Open up the messages and first thing there are videos of them masturbating they had sent to each other. I yelled, "What the fuck is this?" Her mom turned toward me and asked what was wrong, and I loudly proclaimed what I'd seen. She said that she had gone out with some friends, gotten drunk, invited him out for a drink, and ended up blowing coke all night. Then said she got blackout drunk the next night and sent the videos. Claimed that was the only time she'd seen him. Yeah, so when she fell asleep of course I went through her phone again. She'd seen him multiple times throughout the previous 2 months, and I found pictures of them together posing like a cutesy couple on their dates. Her brother and dad were pissed. I got the fuck out there the next morning. Ruined the vacation for pretty much everyone, and totally wrecked our family. One night she told me not to come over because she wasn't feeling well. But then my sister wanted this hoodie back that she'd borrowed, so I thought I'd stop over with chocolate and a Slurpee. I knocked on her door. She came to the upstairs window with only a blanket wrapped around her. I thought I told you not to come over. My sister needs her hoodie. Who's that? Says some male voice from her bedroom. Ah, I see how it is. I'll talk to you tomorrow, she says. Probably not. Have a good one. Not me but one of my best mates. His girlfriend snuck a guy into their 1-bedroom apartment whilst he was playing Xbox in the living room. I heard the argument through the mic. After he heard a noise coming from the bedroom, he kicked her out and continued playing with us. Edit. Alrighty, this certainly blew up. To the people saying my buddy deserved it because he is addicted to video games, I don't know where you got that from. He only plays when there is a bit of spare time. She is just a shit person. After he caught them in the act and kicked her out, he came back onto the mic to tell us what happened and to get off the game. We encouraged him to stay on and talk everything through with us. We were in different countries at the time and couldn't see him in person because we were worried. Their relationship had been a little rocky, but who would guess that someone would cheat, and especially in the next room. He is a great guy who did not deserve that happen to him. He is now in a healthy relationship with a wonderful lady. Okay, so my ex was having computer problems and wanted to go on Facebook on my phone. No problem, but I made her use Safari so I wouldn't have to log out of the app. Anyways, couple days later I'm closing tabs on my phone and there is her Facebook still open. Well, I see she's chatting with her ex John. Turns out they banged in our bed and were gonna go out on a date soon. So in the messages he asked she wear something nice. I'm not the jealous type, so I leave it for a couple days. Couple days go by and she wants to have sex. Well, we are kissing and getting hot and heavy. I whisper in her ear, don't forget, John wants you to wear something nice on your date Saturday. The look of horror in her eyes was magical. I put my shirt on and start walking out as she's crying and saying she's sorry. Not a spouse but college boyfriend. Our relationship had started to feel a bit strained, and he asked if I could come over to talk. He lived nearby, and as I was walking over I thought to myself, whatever he wants to talk about, I can handle it, as long as he's not cheating on me and isn't breaking up with me. So I decided to just start off with that. In my mind, I was going to ask, did you cheat on me? Are we about to break up? And he would say of course not, and then we'd go from there, and we'd work whatever it was out. I walked in, said did you cheat on me? And his face immediately fell. So, conversation didn't really go how either of us planned. Had a weird, sinking feeling that something wasn't right with the new friend from college. Opened his phone. After he randomly changed the lock screen, he gave me the password drunk and saw all the notes. They were kind of odd, so I confronted him, only to be told I'm crazy and it's nothing. Went to work and messaged her on Facebook, since I now knew her name. Turns out he said I was away in the hospital and was pretending to date me for my mental health, and that they could date for real. We both confronted him. She decides to date him again and slanders me. Just found out he cheated on her though, which is some sweet justice. One time my husband thought he had caught me cheating on him. I'm a full-time artist and do pretty well for myself. Most of my paintings are on the weird and surreal side, so when I'm experiencing a creative block I do some pretty weird shit. My husband and I are childhood sweethearts, so he's seen it all. I was nearing the end of my deadline for a gallery series, and I was stressed. My husband was nervous leaving me alone for a week, but he had a business conference that he couldn't miss. Around day 2 I ran to the supermarket to buy a pack of condoms and cheap Barbies. I scalped and maimed the Barbies and stuffed as much of it in the condom as possible. The result was interesting. I'll probably paint it someday in the future, and somehow motivated me enough to finish the remaining paintings in the series. I throw the few condoms I'd used away and boxed the remaining with my art supplies. Didn't bother to think any further on it. Cut to 5 days later, husband comes home. I'm making dinner while he showers. He turns the water on, promptly turns it off, comes downstairs looking white as a ghost and walks out of the house without a word. I'm freaked out and go after him, but he's already gone with the car. I'm blowing up his phone, but he won't answer me. Trying not to freak out too much, I decide that maybe I'm overreacting and just let it go for a few hours. Still no response. I reach out to some family and they haven't heard from him either. I spend a sleepless night debating what to do next. Early morning my husband comes home looking like shit and reeking of alcohol. He goes off at me, screaming and cursing. I've never seen him like this. I'm trying to calm him down, to figure out what the fuck is happening, but he won't let me talk. He's going on until he finally uses the word cheating, and it clicks. He found the condoms. I use the typical, it's not what it looks like response, so he decides to calm down and humor me. Go to my studio and pull out the sketches I'd done of the Barbies in the condoms to show to him. He's giving me a strong what the fuck is wrong with you look, but is calming down. Still not really believing me, so I ask him if the condoms even had fluid in them. Calming down even more, I grab the poor maimed Barbies, and he breaks out in laughter before he begins to tear up. I love this man to pieces, and it broke my heart that he had been so torn up thinking I'd slept with another man. This whole thing happened 2 years ago. Now we just laugh at the whole thing. It took a little while for him to get back to normal. I'm sure he still thought something might be up, but he eventually just settled with the fact that he married someone who's weird as fuck. We are still going strong. Not me, but my neighbor who is also my best friend. He was having his 30th birthday party and a bunch of people were over at his condo. He was intoxicated. A solid 7 out of 10. Intoxicated and spilled his beer on his shirt, so he decided to change shirts. He asked me to come with him because he wanted to ask me something in private, so I went with him upstairs. He opened his bedroom door and we saw his boss going to town on his fiancée. I will never forget the look on his face, his fiancée's face, and his boss's face. The silence was broken up by "This isn't what it looks like" routine. My friend responded with, "If this isn't what it looks like, why was his dick so far inside you?" I stood there in amazement and was in a state of shock. His boss got dressed and I walked him out of the party. The pose even grabbed a roadie before he left. My friend came downstairs and immediately chugged a beer and announced my now ex-fiancée was caught having sex with my boss, and I walked in on them with her legs behind her head. I didn't know she could do that. Usually she lays there like a starfish. Let's get really fucked up. He was kind of a mess for a while after that. Luckily, it was his condo. He owned and paid for both cars. His fiancée just quit her job to be a housewife. Instant karma. Postscript. It took him a year to date again. I set him up with a co-worker of mine. They are great together. The pose boss. Well, he got what he deserved in the end. He was caught sleeping with the wife of the owner of the company he worked for. Fired and my buddy was promoted. His fiancée, well, she moved in with her parents again and had to give up her lavish lifestyle. Last time I saw her she tried to flirt with me and be playful. I shut that down and told her never to speak to me again. Girlfriends come and go, but best friends only come by every once in a while. Edit. My friend never asked me the question he wanted to ask. Probably best he doesn't. On the subject of grabbing the roadie, I want to like that move so badly, but I just can't. Thanks for the comments and the laughs. Hopefully this story helps you in the future or present. Not sure how, but I hope it does. My first long-term girlfriend and I were going to go to the same college. I got accepted, but had to start the semester after she did, meaning we would be slightly long distance for a few months. It wasn't too bad, because we were only about 2 hours apart, so it was pretty easy to visit, but our relationship did struggle a bit. I remember one night I got a phone call from her, and when I picked up it was obvious it was a butt dial. I could hear her talking to some guy, but couldn't make out what they were saying. I called her, and she picked up, and I asked what was up. She said she was in bed about to go sleep. I told her about the butt dial and she said it was her friend Jack, who I met, asking to borrow something. I thought it was odd, but brushed it off. A couple weeks later I was up there visiting her, and I met a bunch of cool people, including this guy Luke. After I got back from visiting I get a Facebook message from him saying, "Look man, I hate to be the one to say this, but I think you're an awesome guy and you don't deserve this to be happening to you. She's been cheating on you with this guy pretty soon after she started here." I was devastated, but I had to hear it from her, so I called her and said, "Are you cheating on me?" She gave a heavy sigh and said, "Well, at least I don't have to lie anymore." That guy's voice I had heard wasn't Jack. It was the guy she was cheating on me with. I just trusted her so much that I took her word for it. Even though it was painful, I was grateful for Luke sending me that message. What's funny is that most of the people I met up there that were her friends sided with me after the breakup. So when I started going there that next semester I had a group of friends to support me, and most of them are still very close friends of mine to this day. We were talking divorce and officially separated while he was still overseas deployed. He had flown back for 2 weeks R&R and would head back overseas due to his request to extend his time there. I thought we were going to talk things out, but I picked him up at the airport and he was stone cold. We went back to our apartment and talked for an hour or less where he said he thought divorce was best, and he had to get going. He was picking up a friend at the airport and staying with her for the 2 weeks he was back. I was in shock. Fast forward several days later, and I was on his computer printing off a CD label, dating myself here, when the art program showed several hidden files that had pictures in them. The folder was labeled with a woman's name. I opened said folder and there are saved explicit detailed emails and photos that dated back long before he and I had started having trouble. No wonder he wanted to extend his stay in a war zone. He was banging an NCO under his command, who he had then coordinated to fly in 3 hours after him so they could run away together after he told me it was over. I never saw that coming. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye.